Om Namo Narayanaya. This is a recording of a talk of James Swartz on the Bhagavad Gita at Yoga-vidya Bad Meinberg near Hanover in Germany.
If I understand that I'm awareness, that means I'm limitless and full. I'm complete and I'm limitless. That's what that means. That notion, because I've been thinking this, that I'm incomplete and inadequate forever, haven't I? Huh? Ever since you're a child. Well, when you're a baby, you don't think that. But as soon as you start developing an intellect, your parents and the society and everybody else tells you you're limited and incomplete. They tell you who do you want to be when you grow up? Meaning you're not okay now. Everything they tell you is to convince you that you're limited and you must do certain things to achieve or to be somebody. The life of human beings is a life of just becoming. You continually want to become something that you're not. So you do all these actions and you think if I do those actions, I'll become accomplished and satisfied and full and happy. I will have completed myself by doing things. Well, that notion is driving all of our motivations, all of our actions. So I have to attack that notion. And there, taking a stand in awareness is a spiritual practice. If you hear the knowledge properly, you don't have to practice I'm awareness because you know your awareness. Then all you have to do is remove whatever other obstacles are there. But if that notion that I'm incomplete and inadequate has not been removed by the teaching, then you need to affirm that notion until it goes away. Okay, good. Yeah, if you come a little early and I'm here a little early, we can knock off a few questions too as we go. Brahmanandam, Brahma Sutras, Kevalam Yanamurtim, Dvandvatitam, Gangana Sadrisham, Tattvamasya Dilaksham, Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam, Sarvadi Sakshibhutam, Bhavatitam, Triguna Rahitam, Sadgurum Tam Namami, Narayanam Padmabhavam Vashishtam, Shaktim Chatat Putra Parasarancha Vyasam Sukham Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogendra Matasya Shisham Sri Shankaracharya Matasya Padma Halatasya Shisham Tam Totikam Vartika Karamanyan Asmad Gurum Shantatam Anatoshmihi Vishwam Darpanadrishyam Aninagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bahurivod Bhutam Yata Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanameva Dvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmaracharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vivagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Sarva Vedanta Siddhantam Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmiham. Om. Just keep your attention on the silence. Any thoughts come, just let them pass through the silence. Don't grab onto the thoughts. You can feel the silence. Notice the thoughts rising and falling in the silence. They enter the silence and they leave the silence. See how the silence devours, eats up the sounds. How it remains unaffected by the sounds and the thoughts. Just stay focused on the silence. If your attention wanders, bring it back to the silence. Keep your attention on the silence, but just relax your attention a little. Just relax as if you're going to sleep in the silence. Just release whatever's in you into the silence. Offer it to the silence. And sleep, but stay awake. Brahmana Maharshi says, inquiry, it's holding the mind on the self. In this case, we're holding our mind on the reflection of the self. The reflection's as good as the original. And once you're relaxed and comfortable in the silence, then you could inquire. Then you could ask yourself, how is the silence known? Who knows it? Is the silence the subject, or is it an object? Now, bring an image of someone you love into the silence and fill that person's image with love. And bring an image of someone you don't love into the silence and fill that person's image with love. And see your body sitting in the silence. And fill every cell of your body with love. Love yourself completely. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunayama Deva Bhadram Pashyemakshabirya Jatra Stirairangayishtushtuvam Sastanovihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vridashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwaveda Swastina Starksho Arishtanebihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadatu. Om Shanti. 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 Om Govinda. Okay, good. So, certain basic qualifications are required for self-inquiry to work. Vedanta is self-inquiry, but self-inquiry is not asking the question, who am I? And then waiting for an answer. That's one of the notions that has been floating around the spiritual world, Western spiritual world, particularly since Papaji's time. Papaji said, ask who am I and sit quietly and wait for the answer. That's not self-inquiry, because the jury's not out on who you are. It's not a mystery. As I said earlier, your awareness, your limitless awareness, your limitless consciousness. So there's that's been known forever. That's what the self is limitless consciousness. There's only one self, and it's limitless consciousness. So any information that you get about that from some source within yourself is not going to be any different from what has been known for ages and what the scripture says. The scripture has been saying you are limitless consciousness right from the day one. And even if God himself, itself, let's say itself, because God's not a man or a woman, God is sexless. Even if God appeared in front of you, like a 200-foot man, great, huge, radiant, incredible being, and said, you are pure consciousness, limitless, non-dual, actionless, ordinary awareness. Say you could get that kind of experience by asking that question. God heard you. Oh, what does he want? He wants to know who he is? Okay, so I'll appear to him and I'll tell him who he is. Okay, if God said that to you, how would you know how to evaluate the meaning of that? You'd say, no, I'm not. Definitely, I'm not limitless, non-dual, actionless, ordinary, unconcerned awareness. Definitely, I'm not. I don't feel like awareness. I feel limited. I feel inadequate. I feel incomplete. You're wrong, God. You trust your feelings. You trust your experience. That's what you experience. So you tell God, sorry, you're wrong. You want a different answer, I guess. But there's no new answer. There's no different answer for this question. So self-inquiry is not asking who you are, who I am. Self-inquiry is applying the knowledge. It's a practice of knowledge. It's called jnana yoga. It's a yoga of knowledge. It's an application of these teachings to your mind on a moment-to-moment basis. Understand? To what? To remove whatever ignorance is there. We already know we're awareness. But there's some part of us that's telling us we're not. Some part of us is saying, no, I'm not limitless. I'm not free. Limitless means free. I don't feel free. So that part of the mind needs to be removed. And Vedanta or meditation, Vedantic meditation, is not removing your thoughts. It's only getting rid of those thoughts that are not in harmony with what your nature. Until what? Until you realize that you are consciousness, and then any thought is acceptable to you. Even the thought that you're not enlightened is acceptable to you. So self-inquiry is a practice of knowledge. The questioning comes in questioning yourself, is what I think and feel about myself true? Is what I believe about the world, is that true? And then you look at your belief in light of the teaching and you see, well, maybe it's true, in which case you can keep that belief or that opinion, that's knowledge. And if it's not true, then you get rid of it. Takes a lot of courage and a lot of honesty to practice self-inquiry, because it requires that you get rid of those beliefs and opinions that are not in harmony with the truth. Well, we talked about that last night. So there are minimum qualifications for this, for Vedanta to work. I'm telling you this because if you don't understand what we're saying, it's because your qualifications are not up to the mark. Yeah, I mentioned this again last night. It's not because there's anything wrong with the teaching. It's because some qualifications are not properly developed. So we never blame the teaching. We never assume that we're the authority and the teaching is a subject to question. We have faith in the scripture. That's one of the primary qualifications. We have faith in this scripture, in the Vedas. And we assume that what the scripture is saying is true, and that what we're saying may be true or it may be false. We don't know. But we have to look at what we think and feel in light of what the scripture says. So the scripture is the one that determines what the truth is. And there are specific qualifications like faith in the scripture and others, burning desire for liberation, discrimination, dispassion, and so forth. We'll talk about those today a little bit. But the primary qualifications are the qualifications we mentioned last night. And those are the understanding that the happiness, the joy that I seek. And remember, I'm seeking things because I want to be happy. You don't do actions to make yourself miserable. And nobody said, oh, I'm feeling really good today, but I'm really tired of feeling good. I'm really bored with this. I think I'll do something really stupid and make myself miserable. Huh? Huh? Do you ever think like that? Nobody thinks like that. You sometimes thinking you can get yourself more happy, or a different kind of happiness, you may do something stupid and make yourself miserable, but you never do an action to make yourself feel miserable. You do action to make yourself feel happy. That's the whole point. And those actions are what? Are in the form of pursuing objects, situations, ideas, feelings, so forth and so on. Security, pleasure, virtue, fame, power, etc. We mentioned those things. Because I feel those things will complete me, make me whole. Those are the ones that mom and pop, your mother and your father, tell you you should do. That's the ones the society wants you to do. They say those things will make you happy. And they're sort of right, because when you do get them, what happens? You feel happy, but what's the problem with that kind of happiness? It doesn't last. It's temporary. And that means what? So when that happiness that comes from the gaining that particular object or avoiding an object that you don't want, there's a class of actions that are not just pursuit of objects, but they're running away from objects. In other words, things that those are fear-oriented motivations. So fear-oriented people, they're trying to avoid things that will hurt them. So they're always running away from things. And the positive people, they're not fear-oriented, they're greedy. They're hungry. They're like little piggies. They want to eat, enjoy experience. So they go for objects. But whether it's going for an object or running away from an object, the happiness that you get when you're successful doesn't last. And in fact, what does it do? It creates a desire for another object. See? So we said that the joy, and we tried to analyze last night carefully where the joy is coming from, and we determined the joy is not coming from the object, it's coming from the subject, from the self, from consciousness, because reality only has two categories, a subject and an object. If it's not coming from the object, it's coming from the subject. So, but and we've discovered from our analysis that the reason that I experience happiness when I get an object is not because the object has the happiness. The reason I get the happiness is because the desire or the fear for that object is what? Has disappeared when the object comes. If the object could remove if the joy was in the object, then anyone who got that object would be happy. But if you ask a vegan to eat a steak, they will be very unhappy. And if you ask a cowboy from Montana to eat vegan food, he will be very unhappy. Which means what? The joy is not in the steak, nor is it in vegan food. And to support that qualification, that is, the qualification means I no longer am pursuing my happiness through objects. That's the qualification. To support that qualification, we pointed out that the nature of samsara, the apparent reality, the world of Maya, the object world, is a zero-sum game. That means what? For every upside, there's a downside. If I have $1,000, that's great. It's lovely to have $1,000. When I buy a TV for $1,000, I have a TV, but I don't have $1,000. And I have a whole new set of problems now that I have the TV, don't I? I've got a contract for the TV and this and that, and maintenance and insurance and this and that and so forth and so on. I use the example that everybody can understand. If I have a relationship, I get intimacy, but I gain attachment at the same time. If I'm out of a relationship, I got freedom, but what do? I lose intimacy. So for every object, there's an upside and a downside. The result will be mixed. There is no way you can win in the happiness business in samsara. There's no way you can lose, but there's no way you can win either. This is something I really need to understand. Otherwise, these teachings are not going to make sense. Otherwise, I'll keep trying to squeeze happiness out of the objects. You know what the objects are that you're attached to. You know what your desires and your fears are. It's different for everybody. We're just talking about the fundamental human issue. You fill in the blank when I say the object, whatever it is you think you want. This is the same for everybody, because behind our little conscious mind, behind our desires and fears, is this big subconscious mind that's programmed the reality to be the way it is. We call that Ishvara. Ishvara, or God, has set up reality in this way. So there's no escape in samsara. There's no escape here. No experiential escape. And the people that tell you that there is an experience beyond samsara, there's an experience beyond samsara that you can gain through doing actions, they're wrong. Those are the people who are telling you to get in a particular samadhi and transcend your ego, or to get rid of your thoughts and your ego, destroy them, and then you're going to get nirvana or samadhi. Because any action that you do, now this is another major qualification, absolutely major qualification. Any action that you do will not produce a limitless result. Why? To understand this very clearly, let me ask you this. Is the doer of actions, that person that does actions, is that person limited, or is that person limitless? Limited. Did you say limited? That's correct. That person is limited. Is it reasonable to assume that a limited person can do an action that will produce a limitless result? Is that reasonable? It's not, huh? There's no logic to it, is there? If you had a limitless person, that person wouldn't be able to do action, would he? Because he'd already be limitless. Any action it does would be limitless. He wouldn't do actions to gain limitlessness at all, would it? To gain freedom, because a limitless person would be already free, wouldn't he? That's what a jnani is. That's what an enlightened person is. An enlightened person is a limitless person who's already free and already full, and won't do actions to what? To get free. Understand? So this idea, so any action that you do is in samsara. Samsara means this world of change. This world of change and becoming. Any action that I do, the results don't leave samsara. This line between awareness, between yourself and the world, the objects, it's nobody ever crossed it. There's no bridge there. There's a wall that's so big that nobody could ever climb over it. Could never. We'll see why. We'll see shortly why you can't get over it. So all actions take place in samsara, And all actions, what? All the results of all actions remain in samsara. They never take this person out of samsara and put this person up here. So I need to understand, this is called experiential enlightenment. People say that enlightenment, you have to experience the self. You have to attain samadhi or attain nirvana. In the Buddhism, the Buddha had an eightfold path, and he said, suffering is caused by desire, and the removal of desire is desirable. And here is an eightfold path. Here's a way that you can live to remove your desires. And then you will get to what? Nirvana. Vana means desire. You will get to a state of desirelessness. You will become desireless. Well, that's not true. Even if you do become desireless, I don't know how you would become desireless, because the day you're desireless is the day you die. The Vedanta says the day you're desireless is the day you die. You always want something. You're always acting out desires here. And there's nothing wrong with it. Desire itself is not a problem. Desire for the wrong things is a problem. But desire for the right things is good desire. And actions motivated by the proper kinds of desires are wonderful desires. So desire is not really an issue. And even if you could do these actions, the actions will never go to consciousness, because consciousness is what? Beyond the world of time and space where actions take place, beyond cause and effect. So these are your basic fundamental, which means what? To just cap off this introduction. I don't have an experience problem. In other words, if I'm chasing experience, if I want to do something to get free, it's not going to work. And the reason is because why? I'm already free. This is why we say you're already free. You're already enlightened, because your awareness, your consciousness, and consciousness is always free. And if you're already free, then you just have an ignorance problem. You don't know that you're already free. Your freedom is being what? Is being inhibited, being prevented by your beliefs and opinions. So if there's any question, if you're asking any question, it's, why do I believe what I believe? We say don't believe what you think. Why do you believe what you think? See? Is there a good reason for you to believe what you think? To believe? Is there a good reason to believe what you feel? Why would you take what you feel about things to be the truth? The truth means what lasts, what's always good. Because what you feel is not always good, is it? Sometimes what you feel is truth is right, and sometimes it isn't. This is why intuition is not a valid means of knowledge. People think enlightenment is through intuition. You just feel it in a deep way. But you can have two different intuitions about the same object. Can't you? At one time you can say, oh, she's such a beautiful person. I know she's really, really wonderful and honest. And then at another time, you can what? Think, I don't know about her. I think she's not quite straight. I have this feeling. Or about anybody or anything. Your feelings, your experience is not reliable as an indication of of the truth. So, why do I believe what I believe? Why do I believe what I think? Who told me that that's the truth? Where did you get the idea that what you think is the truth? So, for this to work, I'm going to have to take the scripture's word on it. And Bhagavad Gita is the scripture that we're going to study this week. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the three principal texts of Vedanta. We call it the triple canon, the three most important texts of Vedanta. One is the original source text, the Upanishads, and all of the ideas that are in the Bhagavad Gita are in harmony with the Upanishads. They're the original source text. And then the next text is called the Brahma Sutras. They're an inquiry into the self. They're very advanced texts, very technical and difficult texts. They're not really required for moksha. Mostly enlightened people and teachers of Vedanta study them. They deal with very, very technical issues and very complicated arguments that highly intellectual people have against Vedanta. There's many very, very spiritual and very intelligent, very good people who really hate Vedanta. I'm just telling you. They have been for thousands of years. Because Vedanta says something that no other teaching says. And they just can't understand it. We're not against those people at all. But they're against us simply because they don't understand the basic teaching of Vedanta, which is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. We'll explain that. So they've cooked up all kinds of arguments why the scripture, the teachings are not correct. And they have other solutions for moksha than we do. I'm just telling you. Buddhism is an example. Buddhism came from Vedanta. The Buddha was actually a Kshatriya Hindu. He obviously had plenty of contact with Vedanta people, but he had a bias. He had a bone to pick with Vedanta that doesn't really apply to Vedanta at all. He was a very good man, Buddha, and he was a dharmi. That is, he was really concerned with right action and right conduct, doing the right thing. And this scripture is a Dharma Shastra. In other words, it's a scripture on Dharma, on how to act. So the Buddha was in the ballpark partly about this. And what his problem was that because the priest class was misusing the teachings on Brahman to manipulate ignorant people, he became angry with Vedanta. And he threw the whole thing out and said, we have to start over again. But there was nothing wrong with Vedanta at the time. There was what? the Vedanta was being misused by the priest class. And that made him angry because he saw how these people were being cheated and lied to, and how the priests were enriching themselves and gaining power, just like it in the Catholic Church happened in the Middle Ages. We had a Reformation. Martin Luther here in Germany was a man who was behind the Reformation of Catholicism. That's where Protestantism came out. And Buddhism is a kind of Reformation teaching. But Buddha threw out the essential teaching. He negated the essential teaching. And so the Buddhists have many arguments why the Vedanta doesn't work. There's another class called Vishishtadvaitins. These are non-dualists, but they're qualified non-dualists. They accept most of it, but they have an argument with some of it, and so on. So the second teaching, the second main text, are the Brahma Sutras, and they deal with those abstruse, those very technical arguments. And they prove that the Vedas are not just about getting to heaven and avoiding hell, in other words, about action. But they prove that the Vedas are also about enlightenment or self-knowledge through knowledge, enlightenment through knowledge. And the third major text is the Bhagavad Gita, which we're going to take. Now, the Bhagavad Gita it's probably the most, I think it probably next to the Bible or along with the Bible and the Quran is probably the most read and published and commented upon work of literature in the world. And the Bhagavad Gita is a Dharma Shastra and a Moksha Shastra. Dharma means action. It's a karma and dharma we're going to discuss that. It's a very beautiful topic. And the first part of the first 5 chapters, first 6 chapters, actually deal with karma and dharma. And they're a preparation for the teaching on knowledge. Yeah, dharma. They're a preparation for the teaching on knowledge. We don't get to the chapters on knowledge till the end, although knowledge is presented throughout the text. The emphasis on knowledge doesn't come till the end of the Gita. Why? Because the mind needs to be prepared. And karma is absolutely essential. Okay? Let's get this very clear. Action, karma, is extremely essential for enlightenment. But action will not produce enlightenment. That's all we're saying. We're 100% for action. We're 100% for hard work. In fact, you're not going to get enlightened unless you do the hard work. But the hard work won't make you enlightened. The hard work will qualify you to understand. It will produce the kind of mind that's capable of understanding this very subtle fact. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. We'll explain. So, it's a Dharma Shastra because karma takes place what? In a field of laws and rules. This is called the Dharma field. The world of objects is called the Dharma field. And it's completely regulated and governed by rules, laws, and principles. This is a lawful universe. Everything here is programmed. It has its own dharma, its own nature. And it behaves according to the laws, its own internal laws and the external laws. There are subjective rules that operate, that control your inner world, and there are laws that control the outer world. Those are called dharmas, or principles, or tattvas, truths or principles. And all of our actions are done in those fields, in the inner world and in the outer world. So the topic of karma cannot be divorced from the topic of dharma. What are the rules? And what is this dharma field? How does it work? And then the Gita is divided into 3 sections. The first section deals with karma and karma yoga. The second section deals with spiritual things you can do. Upasana yoga, it's called. Meditation, basically. This is Vedantic meditation. This is not eliminating your thoughts or getting rid of your ego or transcending your mind. That's not our idea of meditation. That's yoga's idea of meditation. That's not Vedanta's idea of meditation. And then the final final 6 chapters deal with what? Ishvara, with consciousness, and the relationship between the individual, jiva, and consciousness, your true nature. Between your jiva self, your limited individual self, and the universal self. Now, this text is a Puranic text. We're in the Puranic, spiritually speaking, we're in the Puranic age now. The Vedic age is long gone. The Vedic age, there were not, the self was known. During that age, the Vedic age, the Upanishads were revealed to the human mind by consciousness, by God. In that age, people were there wasn't all of these objects. There wasn't these complex societies. There wasn't all this materialism and greed. They had nothing really. These were very simple. Their lifestyle was very simple. They weren't simple-minded people by any manner of means, but their lifestyle was extremely pure and sattvic and simple. And many people gained the revelations that produced these scriptures during that time. And there was no need for all the gods and deities that you see today. Most of you have been to India or are familiar with India. Or you look here, you don't have to go to India. Look at this place. Huh? You see all the gods, you see Shiva, Vishnu, Ram, Sita, all the gods. These are all Puranic deities. They're not Vedic deities. The Vedic deities were basically just personifications of the 5 elements: air, fire, water, earth, and space. There they just worshipped the elements. They could see that the material world was a manifestation of consciousness, and they just worshipped the elements directly. It was a more simple and more sophisticated religion in the sense that people's minds were very clear and very pure, and there were many, many enlightened people in that time. But as civilization developed, as agriculture came, when agriculture came, then you could store food, and you could transport food, and so forth and so on. And then people started gathering together in little towns and villages, and those grew to cities and so forth. And then you got commerce and so forth started to happen. And then Rajas and Tamas started to come in, craving for material objects, let's just say craving for material objects. These societies we have now are totally Rajasic and totally Tamasic. The people in these societies, with the exception of you people sitting here mostly, are really dull, stupid, greedy people. They're just chasing stuff in the world. They think they're very wonderful. They're very pleased with all of their actions and all their possessions. And they worship matter. And when this materialism started to happen, when it started to come up, the rishis were the people who had received this knowledge from consciousness. Vedanta is not comes from human beings. Okay? Vedanta doesn't come from human beings. It is not a philosophy. It is not channeled information. It's revelation. Revelations come to you. They don't come from you. They come from outside you. Outside means from what? From consciousness, from the causal body. That's outside. This is me, the self, the limited self. And what? These knowledge comes from beyond me, from above me, from behind me, from some dimension other than the dimension I live in. Most religions come through prophets and sages, through prophets and mystics and visionaries, and just weird, normal, ordinary people who had some sort of big vision. Look at Mormonism and various other, Those religions are contaminated. They have elements of the truth in them, but they're what? The human mind, certain of the ignorance of the human beings, was added to those revelations, to those inspirations, to those insights that they had, and mixed up with them. So you have knowledge and ignorance sitting side by side in these traditions. There's no clear separation between what human beings think and feel about God and what God actually is. The Bible's a good example. If you read Exodus, say, in the Bible. Now God, Moses he's the spiritual guy, he's the spiritual leader. And he's leading the Jews out of the land out of ignorance, out of suffering. Egypt was a land of suffering. There were plagues and pestilence and all kinds of... It's a symbol of samsara. Ignorance was the Jews' samsara. And there was this guy named Moses, and he said, we got to get out of here. These Egyptians, they're materialists. They're useless. We got to get away from these people. We want to go to the land of milk and honey. The land of milk and honey was awareness. They wanted freedom. And they set off across the desert. The desert to get to the land of milk and honey. That means when you realize that you don't want to be part of this world and this world is causing you problems, then what do? You go on your spiritual journey. You walk away from the world. You go to the cave, you go to the forest, you go to the mountain. You go through this period to get from this material world, from the samsara world, to the world of heaven or milk and honey. They called it like milk and honey because milk and honey is where you're enjoying yourself. You want to enjoy the freedom of their nature. And on the way, there were many obstacles. If you actually get a book, there's the biblical books that tell you what the meaning of the words is of the various places that the Israelites stopped on their journey from Egypt to Israel. And they're all symbolic. The names are all symbolic. They represent certain obstacles that come up for everybody who's on the spiritual path. These are just common obstacles that people have when they're searching for the truth. And so the Israelites come and they come to this group of people who want to kill them, who don't like them. Say, we're going to get rid of you guys, you know. So Moses doesn't know quite what to do, so he says, I'll ask God what to do. And he addresses God as the eternal, the almighty, and so forth. So he's got a pretty good idea what God is. And he says, what should I do, God? God says, oh, just kill him. Just kill him. Now, God didn't, Can you see? What kind of a God is that? Because the God, from God's point of view, those people are just as important as the Israelites. Aren't they? God created those people there, and God created the Israelites. So God can't say, you should kill this one or you should kill that one. Because from God's point of view, they're all the same. God's got to come up with a better solution than that. But what? But the Israelites didn't like those people, so they said, oh, well, they just put those words in God's mouth. Well, God said to kill him, so we killed him. See, there's some knowledge there, but what? There's also what? A human bias there, a cultural bias, a racial bias operating in the scripture. But here there's no cultural racial bias operating. This is just pure knowledge. And it doesn't come from human beings. It was revealed to human beings by what? By consciousness, by God. You will see, as we enter this text, you'll see that it's not personal. The only bias, and I'll tell you what our bias is, okay? I'll tell you what Vedanta's bias is. So it's clear from the beginning. And we do have a bias. We do have a prejudice. A bias, yeah, an opinion, a belief. Our opinion, our belief is what? That suffering's bad. And that freedom's good. Okay? That's it. That's our only, If you enjoy suffering, that's fine. This is not for you. Okay. This is going to tell you that suffering is not good. Which means what? This is a universal. This applies to everybody. And we're happy if you're a Buddhist. We're happy if you're a Muslim. We're happy if you're a Christian or have any other beliefs or opinion. We're quite happy if you want to. This applies to everybody. The problem with most religions is they think this is a religion, and religious people have very strong opinions and beliefs. They don't want to question their beliefs. That's the problem. So very few people, strongly religious people following a formal religious teaching are interested in Vedanta. However, I need to inform you that this is the first 6 chapters of this thing are basically talking about a religious attitude. Vedanta is 100% for having a religious attitude. And it says that without a religious attitude, you're not going to get free. It doesn't mean you have to join a religion, but it's going to tell you that a religious attitude is absolutely essential for freedom or moksha. And we will define that and explain what that religious attitude is and why. We always explain to you why. We never tell you We're not trying to convince you of anything. We're just giving you the reasons why it's wise to take a religious attitude toward your life, toward action and toward life. Now, this teaching is, I said it's a Purana. The Puranas are symbols. They're myths and stories. The deities were cooked up. You know, when the first Europeans, Max Muller and these Germans and so forth, they went down to India and they observed the Indian religion. They were perplexed. In fact, they just like, what is going on here? Who are these people? And Max Muller made one statement. He said, the Vedas are the prattlings of humanity in its early infancy. Means this is just kids. These are just children inventing stuff. They're like, they're just making all these weird things. Who knows what they mean? He just thought it was kid stuff. So, and from the outside, it looks like it. The Puranic era was an era of symbols. These deities are symbols. These deities are not living things. They're what? They're symbols of consciousness, of awareness. When we get further on, I'll unfold a couple of the symbols, and you'll just be really you'll enjoy it very much. It's very beautiful how they created these symbols of the self to make what the self understandable to people at the beginning stage of their spiritual journey. And this text is, the symbol is a war. Okay? The text is the symbol of this spiritual life is war. And a particularly ugly war. A war between friends and relatives, a civil war. A war like you have in the Ukraine. Right now, that's a civil war between Ukrainian people. They all know each other. They all share similar customs and beliefs and ideas. They all live in the same location, but they've got a problem with each other. That's called a civil war. Those wars are much more difficult than fighting a war with somebody that's a million miles away, like America and Afghanistan. That's easy. You don't know those people, you don't care, you just destroy them. And they don't know who you are either. They just see of you as a foreign face and they'll kill you. That's it. But here there's all kinds of sympathy and emotional connections between the people who are fighting with each other. And that's a symbol of what? Of our lives now. We're in conflict with people we love, with people around us, with our friends, with our family, with our wives and our kids, with our bosses. There's always conflict in our lives. So the war here is just a symbol of inner conflict that we have in relationship to the world around us. Okay? Recently, last year, a court in Siberia banned the Bhagavad Gita. They said it's against the law to read this text in Siberia. Why? Because it incites violence. Mm-hmm. It's not inciting violence. It's not telling you to go out and kill people. That's not what it is. It's saying you need to what? Destroy that selfish, greedy, fearful part of yourself with understanding, through understanding. That's what it means. It's a symbol. The war is a symbol. It's a dramatic symbol. And all it represents, and what is all that war represents? Death. And what is death? What is death? Death is another very dramatic symbol of something that's very, very, very ordinary. Something so ordinary and so common that we don't even really think about it that much. Death is just a dramatic symbol of change. Actually, death is no big deal. 1 minute you're here and the next minute you're gone. But there's so much fear around the idea of death that the poet, that the rishi, the writer, has what? Taken it as a symbol of what? Our relationship to change. We don't welcome change. We're always looking for security. Remember, the first thing the first object that people pursue, I very carefully made this very carefully. I made this point very carefully. The first and most important thing that everybody is chasing here in this samsara is what? Security. And why? Why? Why am I so interested in security? Because life is totally insecure. Duh. Things don't stay the same from 1 minute to the next. You're in a relationship with somebody, you don't know when their mind's going to change, do you? You say the wrong thing and suddenly they don't love you anymore. Huh? Huh? From 1 minute to the next, say a word. That word may be an innocent word, but they may hear it a certain way, and suddenly what happens? The love they were giving you right now is gone right now. Just shuts off. You don't love me anymore. You don't love me anymore. Instantly. Everything here is changing all the time. And that makes us very insecure, very nervous. And the only reason we're nervous is because we want to be secure. So death is just a symbol here of change. And how how the fear of change produces what? Emotional problems for us. This is where the whole text starts, with emotional issues. How to manage and handle my emotions in this battlefield or this war of life. How to do that is the topic. And the way it worked, in this case, why was there such emotion? Because of deceit. Deceit means dishonesty, cheating. There were two clans, two families. They're sons of two brothers, and they were princes, very successful, powerful, wealthy people. And they got together to have a family, a gathering of the clan. They were just to enjoy themselves, basically. To eat, socialize, and play some games, and have a nice time. It was just an innocent thing. And there was music and food and everything, and as the evening wore on, the men decided to gamble. Friendly gamble. Nice game of poker. In this case, it was dice. They were rolling the dice and betting. Not huge sums, just, but they were wealthy people, so they could bet. And it was just a habit that they did. And one of the guys on one side, his name's Duryodhana. And Duryodhana, the word Duryodhana, again, these are all symbols. I need to help you with these symbols. Duryodhana means hard. Hard. Durable, our word durable, or duration, a long period of time. Or obdurate, means like a stone. Symbolizes what? That hard, selfish part of you. That fearful, hard, selfish part that's not afraid of what? Of breaking the rules to get what it wants. Remember, there's rules all the time, and all kinds of moral laws, physical laws, social laws, legal laws. There's all kinds of laws operating here. And there's a part of us that what? Is happy to calculate the risk and break those laws if we think we can get if we think that's a quicker way, a faster or easier way to get what we want. So that guy, Duryodhana, now that belongs to everybody. Don't think, oh, Duryodhana, he's the bad guy, and it's like somebody in a story. It's not somebody in a story. It's you and me. We all have that selfish, self-centered, greedy, angry, unhappy person inside. And that person will break the rules if he can get away with it. And the other guys are good guys. They're innocent. They're spiritual types. Arjuna represents them, and Arjuna he's a worldly person, but he's a really good person. He's honest, he's straightforward, he's kind, he's loving, he's respected. He's a really good guy. So everybody's got that really good guy inside them too, mind you. And the war is between these two parts of yourself, the spiritual side and what? And the material side. That's what this is, a conflict. That's the war we're talking here. And what happens? Duryodhana gets his uncle, who is a bad guy. His uncle is a gambler. He gets him to shave the dice. They're playing with dice, and when you take a little bit off one side of the dice, a particular number tends to come up more often than other. And if you know that, then you can bet on that number more carefully, more consistently, and you'll win. In Las Vegas, you have no idea what they do, the technology they have to see that the dice are absolutely perfect. And they change the dice every hour or so, in case any kind of pattern they're fanatical, they're obsessive, because they don't want there to be any kind of advantage when you roll the dice. It needs to be just fate. So he has his uncle shave the dice. That uncle represents Maya, or ignorance. Because when you're ignorant of the truth, then you cheat. There are many ways of cheating. This is just one way of cheating. We all have a cheater in us. You may think you're very righteous and all that sort of thing, but you will cheat. You will not say the whole truth sometimes, when you should say it. You will hold things back, and you'll fiddle, and you'll fudge, and you'll dissemble, and you'll do various things. It's a form of cheating. Because you don't want to lose. You want to win. In every situation, there's this feeling, I need to win, I can't lose. Because it's a zero, because why? It's a duality here. See? So, he shaves the dice, and what? And Arjuna and his brothers lose their shirts. They lose everything. And I used to gamble when I was younger. I had a lot of money, and I had a girlfriend who liked to gamble, and we gambled, and so. When you get in a certain pattern of losing, you keep trying to double down to get out. It's called doubling down. You keep betting more, trying to get back what you got before. But the laws of probability haven't changed at all. You just, The laws of probability are just inexorable, and they just keep working. No matter what you've done before, the probabilities are the same every time. If the dice are okay. And so they keep doubling down, and they lose everything to Duryodhana. They don't know they've been cheated. And then they say, okay, they make one, and then once he's got everything, once he owns all of their property, you know what he does? He says, now get out. Leave. You have to leave the country. I own it all. I'm not going to allow you to stay here. I own your property. I own your livestock. I own everything. And since I'm the owner, and since Dharma says if I own it, then you have to get out. So he forces them into exile. This means what? When you even good people are get exiled from what? From their selves. By what? Pursuing their desires. And then they discover they've been cheated. First, and then they say, well, just give us a little bit. Just give us, never mind, you can have all that stuff. We just want a small little bit of land to build our house and live there. He says, no way, finish, get out. And then he chases them in exile, tries to, he wants to kill them. Because he knows he's cheated. And he wants to get rid of them. So there's no real evidence. Because he can tell everybody, no, they lost it fair and square. But they didn't lose fair and square. They were cheated. In other words, there was a violation of Dharma. And they're victims of that. And they're good people. So, they get a lawyer and all. That's what we do now. We get a lawyer. They don't just go and shoot the guy. They should actually just walk in and shoot him and solve the problem. Because he was a bad guy, believe me. But they're playing by the rules. And they're kind people. They're good people. They're kind people. So they keep sending people to him and saying, are you over it now? Are you still angry? Are you still so mean? Please give us back. We want to come back. We don't like living here. This is a foreign country. We're living in the woods. We're princes. We're not used to living like this, hiding out and all that sort of thing. You send your spies after us. You're trying to kill us. Come on, take it easy. Give us at least something back so we can come and live here in peace, and we'll get along with you. No way. No way. I'm not going to do it. You know that part of yourself that just won't let go, that's just so uncompromising? So, finally, they decide we're going to have to fight. Going to have to fight. Just no other option. And they get together their armies. They get together their army. And Duryodhana says, okay, we'll fight you. Fair enough. What time is it here? Yeah, let's take a break and then we'll come back and see what happens.
Thank you for listening to the talk of James Swartz on the Bhagavad Gita, recorded at Yoga-vidya-Bad Meinberg near Hanover in Germany. More information on shiningworld.com and yoga-vidya.org.